All right, welcome to week 9 of the season, and this is probably the best fortified week that we're going to have for a long while. It is fortified storming bursting. Overall, storming can be kind of obnoxious for melee. We've seen a couple of fights in the past where storming in particular is kind of annoying. I think that like Manifest Time Waste from the season, it's kind of an annoying storming fight just as a whole. By and large, though, these are pretty free affixes in regards to minimal intrusion of how they're going to affect your timer. Bursting, it can cause problems. I think like Everbloom Lashers are definitely the point where bursting has the largest issues. If you're playing with something like a Mistweaver Monk, they're probably going to have enough throughput to be able to heal you through it. If you have a Disciplined Priest, they do have Mass Dispel. Now, Mass Dispel is a button that you can only press like every minute and a half or 2 minutes now since it got nerfed last season. So it's less good. But in general, these are definitely one of the best fortified set for if you're trying to push keys and your timer is ever going to be a problem, because the timer should be very lenient this week. We've actually seen a lot of stuff come within the past week, and so we can kind of take a look at what we've seen happen within the last 7 days. Soulbound Goliath got a minor nerf where Soulthorn's health has been nerfed by 35%. If you were pushing high enough level keys to where the Soulthorn's health was a problem and you needed people to zone out of the dungeon to, wear the PvP trinket, that's a little bit less common now. It's still good in like really high level keys, maybe 27 plus, but it's definitely something that's going to be less utilized just as a whole. We've also seen, and if you watch the last video that I made, some weird stuff happening in Rise where trinkets are able to pull, through walls, and the Naimu's Unraveling Spindle is able to pull mobs with infinite range. You saw it done in a 29 Rise by this group with Kira, where they're able to pull, they're pulling a Rift Mage through the wall, which ends up saving them probably about 45 seconds, if I had to guess. So that's definitely been something that's also been pretty popular. We've also seen some other tech in regards to the last boss of Black or Cold. It has been discovered that Dentalion Axe, whenever he casts his Soul Bolt Volley, or his Shadow Bolt Volley, it's shadow meldable and it's on a target. And if you delay it by 2 casts with 2 separate shadow melds, then you're able to have the buff before the Shadow Bolt Volley hits you, meaning that you don't have to press defensives for it. And it completely eliminates this mechanic and makes it trivial as to what you need to press. However, the way that it's done is a bit complicated. You're going to have a player with a Shadow Meld taunt the boss at the very beginning. This could even be like on your tank. Say you're playing with like a Bear Druid or like a Vengeance Demon Hunter that's an elf. They'll have the boss taunt at the very beginning, and then the secondary player with the meld, who also has a taunt, taunts the boss while the first cast is going off. Then the first player will press their meld, and then the second player will then have the recast of the Shadow Bolt Volley onto them, and they'll be able to meld it off. And it kind of looks like what you're going to see on screen here with the Resto Druid and the Havoc Demon Hunter. So the Havoc Demon Hunter taunts a little bit early to make sure that they have threat. They meld late, and then the Resto Druid has already taunted the boss, and they meld late, and they get the buff before the Bolt Volley happens. That's definitely something that's, both of those strategies are kind of popular among high-end groups now. The Twisted, the Unraveling Spindle thing, there's potential for it to be used elsewhere as well. You can pull mobs from the very beginning of Darkheart Thicket. They don't snap super well. They do snap, they can snap, but again, they don't snap super well, and so it's something that you kind of have to play around with. Maybe there will be something that happens with that. I kind of expect that to be changed in regards to how it works. On top of that as well, a new website, not -even-close.versal.app, I'll link it down in the description, as well, has become pretty popular among groups that are doing high-end keys. Whenever you're trying to determine whether or not you're going to die 100 to 0 by a mechanic, I was using it last night to tell how much damage I was going to be taking from Racking Pain and Soul Rend for like a 30 Ataldazar. This is probably more popular for like, 27 and up tyrannical keys, trying to figure out whether or not you need to wear Icy Preservation File, whether or not you need an external for specific things, how you need to layer your defensives properly. It also only matters for specific specs and specific classes, but a great tool. Big shout out to Ordamist of Zul'jin for creating this. We need it this season. You go through phases where you need it and you don't. This season, it's quite popular. Compositionally, I think we're seeing most of the same stuff. Vengeance and Prot Paladin being the premier tanks. A large range of healers, where we're seeing, I think, Disciplined Priest, Resto Druid, and Mistweaver Monk being the most popular, but even things like Holy Paladin peppered in a bit. Doesn't seem like one healer is necessarily taking full advantage or is the premier healer. If you want my opinion, I think that Disciplined Priest, whenever you're trying to do 31s or 32s, is going to be slightly better than Mistweaver and Resto Druid, but it's not by like a ton, right? The reason that it would be better is because they have pain suppression. They're able to shield people from one shots. You have Fortitude from like a more reliable source. But the compositions that you're seeing are still pretty popular and relatively the same thing. We've also seen an NA group pioneer a comp that they call God Comp, where they're playing double mage outlaw rogue with Nerf Ellesmere, Billy JPC, and Hopeful, and they're doing keys quite fast. It doesn't seem like they're still not at the top of the leaderboard, right? They're doing some region first keys, but they're not doing world first level keys, and they're quite fast in some of their runs, and it's kind of having people sometimes question whether or not AUG is mandatory. This is something that we might end up seeing how it progresses over the next couple of weeks, whether or not groups actually start to drop that augmentation evoker. Personal opinion, I don't think we're at a state where dropping the AUG makes sense, because there's a lot of defensive value that the augmentation evoker brings to your group. Now, I'm not positive that this is going to be the case, and I might be changing my opinion next week after we see like a full fortified week, because right now we've only seen it with the tyrannical week, which of course the augmentation evoker does really well in keeping your group alive. But overall, that's kind of what we've seen in the past week. This next week, again, going to be one of the best push weeks, and then you get a week off with Tyrannical Afflicted Bolstering being completely unplayable. But Fortified Storming Bursting is a great affix set. I kind of expect to see that just being one of the best weeks for pushing this season. I hope to see you guys in the next video, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye.